Good morning, everybody. How's it going?
It's going excellent.
Awesome. Happy Thursday in Switzerland.
It's not just Thursday, it's a holiday here.
Is it?
Yes, it's Ascension.
Oh, that's interesting. Unbelievable.
Yes.
All right. Well, we want to welcome everybody. My name is Brenda Neckbottle. I am known as Brenda the HR lady. And to my this way is Suzanne Lucas, also known as the evil HR lady. So you got to do this part, right?
Oh, that way.
The evil HR lady.
That's right.
Oh my gosh. And we are here for our weekly question and a show called The Real HR Show. And the question is, wonder what is changing in HR next? Good question, right?
It is a good question. And basically, we can ask that same question
like every day.
Every day.
Oh my gosh. Well, listen, here's how you can follow us. You can follow me over at brendathehrlady.com. You can follow Suzanne Lucas over at theevilhrlady.org. And you can also hit us up in our Facebook groups. I have the Next Gen Women in HR Facebook group, and Suzanne Lucas has the Evil HR Lady. And we'd love for you guys to join us. Please, when you sign up, make sure you answer the questions on both groups. And
because we won't let you in if you don't
that's
answer.
Right.
Even if your profile is like all HR all the time, I'm not letting you in if you can't follow instructions.
You have to do the work. It's as simple as that. So, all right. So you ready to get into our subject today?
I am ready to get into our subject today.
You want to kick it off today?
That was like the Montgomery Burns evil.
I know, right?
Yes. So one of my favorite topics, contractors versus employees. And if you have been caught up in the pandemic for the past, 16 months, like the rest of us, you may have missed something that the Trump administration did, which was to make it easier for people to be contractors and easier for companies to employ contractors rather than employees. However, they didn't get the rules finished until January 6th. And it wasn't supposed to go into effect until March 8th. And if you pay any attention, you will know that Donald Trump was no longer the president on March 8th when it was supposed to go into effect. So the Biden administration, the Department of Labor under Biden, put a hold on these regulations. A bunch of people sued, saying that they didn't follow the legal requirements to make it to have public comment, blah, blah, blah. And then last week, they just pulled them all together. So while it may seem like a change in regulation, it's not, because the Trump rules never went into effect. Now, if you were counting on those Trump rules to go into effect, then it can be an impact on your business. But if you weren't counting on them, it's just like you didn't notice anything because it never went into effect. That's what's up.
And it's not over yet. Nope.
It is not over yet. It is not over yet. And people are suing for the same reason that they were suing on the lack of implementation. They're saying that the Department of Labor didn't follow procedure. And when the Department of Labor doesn't follow procedure, or any department doesn't follow procedure, and I'm starting to sound bored with myself. Let me tell a joke. No, but anyway, when they don't follow procedure and have enough comment period and that, then the courts have held that the rule changes are arbitrary and capricious, which I just think is a fun phrase.
That's a cool word, capricious.
Yeah, and we don't use it enough.
No.
It should be a word we use more often. But that's what businesses are counting on.
But Guess what?
What?
But earlier this week, actually last week on May 6th, the United States Department of Labor withdrew the proposed rules that were set by the Trump administration and which were originally intended to revise the test for clarifying workers as independent contractors at the federal level for wage and hour purposes under FLSA. And the withdrawal also alleges that the rules, which were originally set to take effect on May 7th, would have been contrary to the FLSA's text, purpose, and judicial precedents. So it ain't over just yet. And in addition to that, sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say it's definitely not over because
Nope.
the opponents are saying that they can't withdraw those rules without a proper notice and comment period because they went through a proper notice and comment period before. And the Biden administration is saying, no, these are inappropriate anyway. This is going to end up in court no matter what. And I don't know how it's going to turn out.
But we know what they want to do. And that's what we want to share because the way things are moving forward, there's a possibility that could actually happen. Maybe not right at this moment, but it could come down a little bit further in the pike. So what we want to do is we also want to get you prepared for when in fact, if these things move forward, and they are going to move forward in a couple of states. So we definitely want to help get you guys ready for that. So there is, go ahead.
I say, and this is not the only thing. The Biden administration is also pushing the PRO Act, which along these same lines adds an ABC test for contractors. And these acts are all originally targeting the Ubers and DoorDashes of the world. And politicians seem to think those are the only contractors out there. They don't think of people like, say, me, who work as an independent contractor for a large number of firms. And I am certainly not making the money that Uber or DoorDash is, and neither as my clients, like a small magazine. They're not pulling in that thing. They don't have any clout. But the PRO Act is not likely to pass. It's passed the House, but it's not likely to pass the Senate. But that doesn't mean that Biden's not going to try to get the same stuff through back doors, which is basically what we're using the Department of Labor regulation for. And I put my biases out on the table. I do not like this at all. So.
No. And in addition to that, the president also has the ability to execute power on using his executive order authority. And he can actually, what is not uncommon, see, he's got something to say about that too. What's not uncommon is that he doesn't like it either. Okay, you're done talking. Thank you. What's not uncommon is that they make the change as it pertains to government contractors, and then they use that kind of as a case study to say, listen, we've proved this, and so now we're going to open it up to the rest of the world or the rest of the US. That is a common tactic that is used because I play in the government contracting side of life. Very, very, very common direction. So we want to share with you some information. Now, there was from the law office of Ford and Harris, there's an article that came out. You can Google this if you want to read it for yourself, but we're going to share this with you. It's called the U.S. Department of Labor, USDOL, signals together stance on federal classification of workers as independent contractors. All right. Now, the things that they are looking at, all right, so help you understand like the finite details here is that because the Trump era rules, which never took effect, that have largely maintained the economic realities test to determine whether a worker is in business for him or herself, otherwise known as an independent contractor, or is economically dependent on the employer for work as an employee for purposes of the FLSA by considering the following factors: the extent to which the services rendered are an integral part of the principal's business, the permanency of the relationship, the amount of the worker's investment in facilities and equipment, and the nature and degree of control by the principal, as well as the worker's opportunity for profit and loss, the amount of initiative, judgment, or foresight in an open market competition with others required for the success of the worker, and the degree of independent business organization and operation. So basically, we're still running right now under the same premise that if you hand a problem to an independent contractor and say, get this back to me in 30 days, good luck, I'll pay you when you're done, go ahead and send me the invoice, still looking more like a 1099. But once you start putting in those You need to show up here. Here's some equipment for you. By the way, you have a workstation. I need you on call for these amount of times. And now you start doing that day-to-day management. That is still looking as that's moving over to the W-2 side of the fence. So when they withdrew the rules, there's a couple of things that what they want to do as far as the state's ABC tests that are in place. Right now, California and Massachusetts now apply this test, and we'll go over what this is, because this is an element that's being taken into consideration to actually move the initiative forward, right? Forward. Oh my God, there weren't even real words that came out of my mouth on that one. Wow. So they didn't even, so that's how they're trying to take this and use this to move the president's initiative and agenda forward, is using this something similar to the ABC test, if not the actual thing. So we're going to explain to you what that is real quick, and then then I'll shut up and let my partner in crime over here talk more. So A, the worker is free from control and direction of the hiring entity in connection with the performance of the work, both under the contract for the performance of the work and in fact, and the worker performs, that's B, worker performs work that is outside the usual course of the hiring entity's business, and C, that the work is customarily engaged in an independently established trade, occupation, business of the same nature as the work being performed. Go.
Okay, and we're off to the races. These rules, if you're not in the thick of independent contracting, sound fairly reasonable. And they can be. It just really depends on how closely they're monitored and what the goals are. And then you also have to take into consideration that the IRS has their own standard of rules for what constitutes an independent contractor. And you would think that they would be the same, but
Nope.
you would be wrong. And this is an example of where government is dumb, because an independent contractor should be an independent contractor. And where we get into trouble, a couple of years ago, or I guess it's been 2 years, California passed a law, AB 5, if that means anything to anybody, about independent contractors. And their goal, again, was to hit Uber and Lyft. That was their goal. That's who they wanted to attack. But Uber and Lyft happen to have high-paid lobbyists and lots of money to make campaign donations. And so then they ended up getting exempted. And a lot of people like freelance writers and caterers and those people started to get hit by these regulations, because when you really narrow down the terms of control, and one of the things is if the business if it's a core part of their business. So for instance, I do a lot of freelance writing. So if I'm writing on an HR software's webpage just to increase their SEO, then that's independent because the writing isn't a core part of their business, right? But if I'm writing for a magazine, writing is the core part of their business. And now there's a limit to how many articles I can write for this business under the California rules. And this is something that a lot of people would like to see spread throughout, because it's not just independent contractors, it's also increasing union power. And this is something that unions are not pleased with the way things are going. And it may seem completely unrelated, but there was a warehouse facility that Amazon had where they had a unionization vote, and the warehouse voted it down. Now, warehouse workers are something that's very, very typical union. Like if someone was going to unionize, it would be them. That's what I would think. But they lost the unionization vote. I mean, that's another slam against unions, and they're trying very hard to gain power back to what they used to have.
So, excuse me, it's complicated, and there's clearly an agenda that's falling in place here. And this isn't a political conversation. This is fact. I mean, this is hard not to see. And I have not yet heard a single person actually cheer for something like this at all. I have not heard one single positive comment about any of this happening. And um, in my estimation, it's about money somewhere. That's what
Oh
all
yeah,
this
it's
is
about
about.
money.
Yeah. The money they're targeting some money that is being lost or they anticipate that is not being captured. And there's a they're trying to hide it behind the guise of like, well, we need to take care of our employees. Well, there's a lot of really good companies out there that are getting beat up right now. Policy change that don't beat their employees up and that are really great to their employees. And they're the ones ultimately that are going to pay the penalty on all these changes. And
Absolutely.
that's the reason why we're working to get you guys ahead of all of this and get thinking on what you need to do to prepare for this because it's coming.
It's coming. And so you need to prepare and you need to keep an eye out for things as they happen. Like I said, with this Trump rule change that never went into effect, a lot of people missed that this rule change was even happening because everybody was so focused when the Department of Labor approved the rule changes in January. That was right when the vaccines were rolling out. That the day that they came out was January 6th, which may be a day that you remember, the day when there was the protests at the Capitol and everything went to hell in a handbasket. It did not make any front page news. Okay. And to be honest, I missed it, and I'm rather embarrassed that I missed it, and I didn't learn about it until later. Um, it would have made front page news if we had had a normal January 6th, but we did not have a normal January 6th.
Nope.
And so these things are going to happen, and they're happening behind closed doors, the discussions, but then when they come out, if you're not paying close attention, you'll miss them. And the problem is that neither the Department of Labor nor the IRS cares whether you were paying attention or not.
Right. And it
What
just
they
go ahead,
Go
finish,
ahead.
finish.
I
Nope,
was
you
say what
finish.
they care about is that you're aligned with it, and if you're not, well, then let me smack some fines on you.
So, if you are trying to figure out, I'm going to do a little plug here. I'm going to do a shameless plug. I'm sorry, I am. But if you are trying to figure out how you can stay up with stuff, over on my website at brendathehrlady.com, you will see up at the top something that says HR resource site. You click that on. You will be able to learn more about a tool that we put together where we give you access to current HR news, which includes 6 major employment news categories: COVID updates, employment law, legal updates, litigation, collective bargaining, affirmative action, EEO-1 and OFCCP for government contractors, as well as disability. You get literally real-time comprehensive updates for individual states. Now we got a couple of states that are kind of like combined into other resources that are on here, but the state updates are coming out. So that's 100 streaming articles at any point in time from 70 different resources, including the US and Canada. And you got some other goodies like downloadable HR tools, some videos, and some case law summaries. It's extremely affordable on top of it. It is only $9 a month. $9 a month. You spend more in coffee in 1 week than you spend on something like this. And it definitely gives you all of this information to help you stay up. Even if you only just read the headlines, you are at least aware that something is taking place. And I wish I had something like this when I was an up and coming HR sprout.
And this is something that's very important because it's just reading the headlines is enough for you to know, okay, I need to click on this. I need to learn a little bit more. Because, as I said, these changes are coming. Biden was very clear in the campaign that he was going to undo as much of the Trump changes as he possibly can. And he's going forward with that. And this is one of those problems that we face when we're a polarized society, is that if we have a Republican win in 2024, regardless of who it is, they're going to do the undoing of what Biden does. And if we have a Democrat then win in 2028, they're going to do an undoing. Like, it's this whiplash, which is great for me because this is how I make my money.
It's great for attorneys too. Just
it's
saying.
Great for attorneys.
It's
great
wonderful
for HR consultants. It's good for us.
Yeah.
Brenda and I love it. We would like the White House to alternate parties every 4 years. And if we could have control of the Senate and House change every 2, gosh, we would finally be able to take those vacations to Hawaii. Brenda goes to Hawaii. You have relatives in Hawaii. Yeah. You're from Hawaii or something.
Yeah, partially, yeah.
Yeah, I've never been. So anyway.
I've never been to Switzerland, so there you go.
Yeah, Brenda can come and visit me in Switzerland.
That's right.
But this is something that is not going to calm down this year, next year, in the next 4 years. It's not going to calm down. There's going to be these changes. And like I said, right now, all the Biden Department of Labor did was say, we're not implementing the new Trump rules. So the rule today is exactly the same as it was a year ago. Don't panic. You didn't need to do anything. If you hadn't done anything to change in anticipation of this rule, then you don't need to do anything now. But it's not the only change that is coming. And we are seeing National Labor Relations Board changing as well. And the general counsel for the NLRA got fired, which is totally not traditional. She should have served out her term, but Biden did not want her, and so he fired her. That's indicative of big changes coming.
Absolutely. And here's the next change that's coming. We're already ramping up for midterm elections.
Yes,
we still haven't shook off everything from the last one. Gubernatorial campaigning has already started, which means that your general assemblies and your lawmakers, depending upon how your state's set up, right? I live in the Commonwealth, so it's a general assembly. But your lawmakers are already working at making change happen for mid-year changes. So July is what? How many toes is that? 2.5? 2.5 toes away. 2.5 months away from now. And we know when July 1st rolls around, we always see legislative changes mid-year, because that's when the state enacts changes, right? So there's a metric, sorry, I'm going to say it because it's such a great phrase. There's a metric shit ton of stuff happening.
You can just say metric ton.
I'm going to say it because it's such a good phrase and it matches. And that's not the only time. That's one of the few times I do that. But anyway, it's happening. Right. And we have to be ready for this. This isn't a party line thing for us. Right. It's not us talking about whether we favor one party or another, we favor one ideal or another. We don't care. What we care about is you guys. Our partisanship is you guys. And we want to make sure that what is going on, you are ready for it, because if you're not, it's going to flatten you, because it's not just going to like trickle down. It's all going to come down in one foul swoop. And it's complicated because I was on a panel the other day I was asked to speak with the local chamber of commerce on a panel for government contracting. And I was the HR voice. We had an HR voice, we had a business attorney, and then we had an accountant, which is like all the things that you need to do government contracting. And I was talking about all these changes that are coming down. And I had both the attorney and the accountant and the CPA telling me, like, she's right. You have to get ready for it now, because there's a ton of stuff that is about ready to happen. And one of the comments that I made is that in my career, I have never seen the states get so involved with making changes. And we've seen that slow creep happening starting in 2019. Part of it is political, because it does support the current president, right? There was that push and that momentum to, when laws happen and change in certain states, it does support a potential incumbent's agenda. And that's exactly what happened, right? So that's the only political statement that we're going to make on this one. That's just a fact, right? We can't change that. It's not an opinion. It's a fact. And so with that, now that we have that incumbent president in house, those allies are going to continue on that agenda to help support. And one of the ways that they do that is making laws happen in states that actually support, and rulings in court. Now, I'm not saying judges can be bought. That's not what I'm saying. But judges do tend to rule. And if they rule, it triggers the state legislature to actually take that case law and turn it into something legislative that compounds and literally drives it into the ground. So it's hard. So basically it sets precedents in more than one way.
Right.
That's how that works.
And we have to pay attention. And like Brenda was saying, it's not just at the federal level. We have to pay attention at the state level. And so many companies, with the pandemic, decided to let people work at home, which sounds great. But now that states are opening up and blah, 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 you're going to need to make a decision whether these people work at home or if they work in your office. And if they're working at home and they're in a different state, then they're subject to different regulations. And it's not just employment regulations, it's also with these accounting things, these tax things, all of this comes together, and we've got to be prepared. And so if we're not prepared for it, and you've got to pay attention, so you say, oh, I don't care, everybody can work from home. Where I used to live in Pennsylvania, I was right on the border of New Jersey, and I even had neighbors that worked in New York. And so if you all bring them home, now we're all sitting on our behinds in Pennsylvania, but the offices are in Pennsylvania and New Jersey and occasionally New York. And actually I had one neighbor who also went to Delaware. All of that's going to have different rules as these states are tackling these things. And you as a business owner have to say, well, it's okay for you to work from home, but that home needs to be in this state. And that's not, it sounds incredibly unreasonable. Especially like, well, I've always lived in Pennsylvania and worked in New Jersey. Why should I make a change now? Well, the reason is this, that if you're working from home, you're not working in an office, and then you're subject to different rules. And as the states are also becoming more polarized politically, which means under the Trump administration, you had blue states trying to fight what Trump was doing. And now under the Biden administration, you have red states trying to fight what Biden is doing. Yeah. And that's not going away. And that's not, as Brenda said, this isn't a partisan issue. It's just the reality is that you have the states fighting against the federal government when they disagree, and it comes down on your head. That's it. It comes down on your head.
It does. Now, here's the other piece too, and this will be our last comment here, and then we'll open it up over on Clubhouse, because we are recording us for Clubhouse, not you guys. But oh, don't tell me it went away. Oh no, it didn't. I got it back. Ultimately, what's happening as well is, and this has been very quiet. So. Excuse me, when Biden came into office, and I can speak for myself, I've never seen anything like this in my career before, and likely Suzanne hasn't either. But the White House actually sent down a notification to Wage and Hour Division, the Wage and Hour Division of the Department of Labor. I also went to OSHA, went to the EEOC, and the NLRA. And as far as enforcing punishment or enforcing regulations, they put a mandatory pause on that and required those departments to review how the government and how each of those divisions are actually making those enforcements happen, and ensuring that the revisions are correct and in place. While they were doing that, over the last several months, those divisions were also hiring investigators quietly. Quietly. So the NLRB, not necessarily so much, right? But OSHA, the EEOC, and the Department of Labor were ordered to hire, and we're doing it in January, more investigators, which means one thing: they are going out into the field and they are going to find problems. So
Yes,
get ready for it.
they are going to get. They
It's
are going to
catchy,
do
isn't it?
that. It's catchy, and there was not only a period where they're like, we're just going to let things go for a bit. There was also a period in which they were having a safe harbor for FLSA violations, where if you just made everybody whole, then you didn't get fined. And that's gone away now too. So if you didn't get your
FLSA.
FLSA categories in
Classification.
place. Classification. Oh my gosh. It's time for me to take a nap. It's 4:30.
In other words, if
Work
you had your
day's
employees
almost done. Anyway,
if your employees were misclassified, you had a chance to correct it. That has since passed. But you know what? Here's the thing: you can still correct it.
You can. You
just
can
correct it.
And you need to correct it. Don't wait another minute.
No.
And if you have an employee who you are concerned about, first of all, it's always legal to pay by the hour and give people overtime. That's always legal. You can pay your CEO that way if you want to. That's fine. So if you have somebody who you're not entirely sure if they meet the qualifications for exemption, the easiest thing to do is just say, all right, we're going to pay you hourly and give you overtime. That's a quick fix. It can be more expensive depending on the job, blah, blah, blah. But that's a quick fix. But it's worth the money to have an expert evaluate that job, and then have it correct, and then if necessary pay the overtime that those people were owed for the time that they were classified incorrectly. And before you want to say, well, it all evened out because they were only in the office for 30 hours for the a week for the month of April, but in March they were there 60 hours a week, but no, it's per pay period. So it doesn't matter whether you overpaid, you don't get to take any money back because you misclassified somebody. But if you misclassified them and they are owed overtime, it's cheaper to get it taken care of today. It is cheaper to hire an HR consultant or to hire an employment attorney. If you're hiring an HR consultant, you want to make sure it's someone with expertise in job evaluations. And Brenda is smiling. This is something I believe Brenda can do for you. And as much as I hate to admit my failings, this is not something that I can do for you. But if you would like to hire me, I will just charge you a premium and have Brenda do the work.
Wow. There's two shameless plugs right there. Two shameless plugs in one shot.
There you go. No, but you can hire Brenda or somebody else, but you want to make sure that they're an expert, because there are HR consultants like me who I just don't do that work. That's not work that I do. If you want a vaccine policy written, I'm your gal, but not this. So
and do the highfalutin work.
I do the highfalutin work. I do not do the highfalutin work. I also coach people on how to talk with employees about bathroom issues. So I don't know if that's highfalutin.
That's a rare commodity is what that is.
Unfortunately, it's well needed. Oh gosh, it's so needed. And it shouldn't be. Funny. We're adults, right? The working world, you should all be adults. Anyway, it's cheaper to do that. And it's always cheaper to hire the consultant or to hire the attorney if you're not sure. I mean, some things are really, really, really easy to know what they are. If you're a grocery store cashier is always going to be non-exempt. They're always going to be eligible for overtime. A produce manager in a grocery store can be on the
Iffy.
line.
Mhm.
It can be iffy, depending on what percentage of the day is spent in managerial tasks and what percent of the day is spent on the floor dealing with customers.
And not to mention, blue collar is always non-exempt.
Yes.
Always.
Yep. So anyway, that kind of deviated from the contractor versus employee camp, but it's really important that you understand that these changes aren't things you can ignore. And they are more coming, and no judgment whether they're good or bad. They're just happening, and they will affect your business sooner or later.